My brother deserves everything. Elena, you're just there. That was my mother's voice. Sharp and careless, cutting through the noise of our family Christmas dinner in Denver. She didn't whisper it. She didn't hesitate. She said it like it had always been true. My younger brother, Ryan, leaned back in his chair, keys to his new car dangling from his fingers. He smiled like a king being crowned. Around the table, relatives laughed, nodded, agreed. My father stared at his plate, silent as always. Growing up, Ryan had everything. Private schools, tutors, cars at 16, praise for breathing. I got lectures, comparisons, jobs after school to build character. I learned early that in our family, love came with conditions, and I never met them. So I stayed quiet. I worked. I studied. I built my life where they couldn't see it. That night, though, something snapped. My aunt turned to me and said, half joking, "So Elena." Still doing that little computer thing, I set my fork down. "Actually," I said, my voice steady despite my heart pounding. "My company closed a deal last month. Our valuation crossed 28 million. The room froze. Ryan laughed first. Loud. Ugly. "That's not funny." My mother shot to her feet. "Why would you lie about something like that? You're embarrassing your brother." I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not lying." Ryan stood, fists clenched. "You've never done anything big in your life." That's when I realized the truth didn't scare them. What scared them was losing control. Because the moment they believed me, everything they built their identity on collapsed. Before I continue, thank you for being here with me at this moment. If you've ever been underestimated or treated like the invisible one, your support through a like, a comment, a share, or a subscribe truly means more than you know. That dinner didn't end with apologies. It ended with rage. And in the weeks that followed, my family didn't just try to take credit for my success. They tried to steal it. After that dinner, my phone didn't ring with congratulations. It rang with disbelief, accusations, and a sudden curiosity that felt sharp instead of warm. Ryan texted first. "You think you're funny saying stuff like that in front of everyone." Then my mother followed. "If you're exaggerating, you owe your brother an apology." That was the pattern my whole life. Ryan got belief. I got proof demands. Growing up, he was enrolled in the best schools because he was gifted. When his grades slipped, tutors appeared. When mine soared, Mom said, "Don't get arrogant." Ryan got a car at 16 because he needed confidence. I took the bus because hardship builds character. When he failed his first year of college, Dad paid to extend his lease. When I asked for help with books, I was told to take another shift. So I learned to rely on myself. I learned to keep my wins quiet. I built my first startup in a spare bedroom with a folding desk and a borrowed server. When it started paying real money, I didn't tell my family. I paid off my student loans. I reinvested. I hired quietly. When a client offered to buy a steak, I said no and kept growing. Every milestone I hid wasn't shame, it was protection. 2 days after the dinner, Ryan showed up at my apartment unannounced. He didn't knock. He leaned on the doorframe like he owned the place. "So," he said, scanning the room. "Where's the proof?" I handed him nothing. "I don't owe you an audit." He scoffed. "If you really had that kind of money, Mom and Dad would know." "That's exactly why they don't," I replied. His face flushed. You think you're better than us now. I thought of every ride I paid for myself. Every night I coded while he partied. No, I said. I think I'm done being smaller so you can feel bigger. That night, the tone shifted. The family group chat lit up with questions disguised as concern. We just want to understand. Family should be transparent. If this is real, we need to talk about next steps. Next steps. As if my life had been a group project they could suddenly grade. By the end of the week, Dad called. His voice was careful, rehearsed. Your mother's worried, he said. If you're doing well, maybe it's time to think about helping your brother get back on track. There it was. Not pride. Not relief. A plan. I realized then that telling the truth hadn't changed who they were. It had just revealed how fast they'd pivot when they smelled opportunity. And Ryan, he stopped mocking me. He started watching me counting, measuring, calculating. That's when I understood something important. My success didn't make him proud. It made him furious, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't ahead. The blow-up happened at my parents' house the following Sunday, when everyone decided a family meeting was necessary for them. Anyway, I arrived early, sat on the edge of the couch, and watched the room fill with people who had spent years telling me I wasn't enough. Ryan paced like a storm, looking for somewhere to land. My mother clasped her hands together. Already stressed, Dad stayed near the window, silent, choosing the role he always chose. So, Ryan snapped, let's clear this up. Are you actually worth $28 million? Or are you just enjoying the attention I met his eyes? The valuation is public. You can look it up. He laughed. But there was no humor in it. That's impossible. You didn't go to the right school. You didn't have connections. You didn't. He stopped himself, chest heaving. You didn't deserve that. My mother jumped in quickly. Ryan, calm down. Elena, sweetheart, you have to understand how shocking this is for your brother. For your brother, not for them. For him. I do understand, I said. It's shocking when the story you've told yourself stops working. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. You think you're smarter than everyone now. No, I replied evenly. I think I've always been capable. You just never noticed. That was the moment his face changed. Rage. Raw and unfiltered. If you really have that kind of money, he said, pointing at me, then this family deserves a say. We invested in you. We raised you. My stomach dropped. Not from fear, but from clarity. You didn't invest. You compared. You criticized. You withheld. Dad finally spoke. Let's not turn this into a fight. It already is. Ryan shot back. She's hoarding success like it belongs only to her. I stood up. The room fell quiet. It does. My mother gasped. Elena. How can you say that? Because my work, my risk, and my sacrifices aren't communal property. I said, and they never were. Ryan took a step toward me. You walk out now. You're choosing money over family. I picked up my coat. No, I'm choosing myself over a system that only valued me when I became useful. No one stopped me as I walked to the door. Not even Dad. The air outside felt cold and clean, like the first breath after years underwater. As I drove away, my phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. All caps. This isn't over. He was right. But he had no idea how prepared I was for what came next. I didn't disappear after that Sunday. I fortified. First, I cut the noise. New phone number. Private email. My assistants filtered everything that mentioned my family. Not because I was afraid, but because clarity requires silence. While Ryan fumed and my mother rehearsed concern, I sat with my legal team and mapped every weak point. We reviewed shareholder agreements, voting rights, vesting schedules. My name was clean. My control absolute. The company was mine because I'd built it that way slowly, deliberately, without spectacle. Then we locked down personal assets, trusts, firewalls, NDAs. If someone tried to reach in, they'd hit glass. The pressure came anyway. Dad left a voicemail that sounded reasonable until you listened closely. "We just want transparency," he said. "Families share information." My mother followed with a text that pretended to be loving. "Your brother is struggling. A little guidance from you would mean everything." And Ryan went straight to threats. He emailed my board. Not accusations. Questions. Carefully worded. Poisonous questions about governance and ethics. About whether my success was independently verifiable. About whether investors knew the full picture. He seeded people who didn't need to be there and hoped doubt would do the rest. It didn't, because I'd already anticipated it. My counsel replied with documents. Timelines. Audits. Calm. Surgical. Unassailable. Ryan's follow-up never came. Instead, he pivoted faster. Uglier. A cousin called to warn me. "Ryan's telling people you cut the family off after you got rich," she said. "He says you changed." I didn't correct her. I documented it. Screenshots. Emails. Voicemails. Every attempt to coerce or smear. Patterns matter when stories unravel. Then the invitation arrived. A reconciliation dinner. Neutral location. Mediator present. My parents' favorite play reset the board. Move the goalposts. Call it love. I accepted not because I believed them, but because endings require witnesses. The night before, my attorney asked one question. "Do you want peace or resolution?" I thought about Ryan's clenched jaw. My mother's selective memory. My father's silence that always arrived too late. "Resolution," I said. "Peace will follow. Before we meet again, thank you for staying with me through this turning point. If you've ever chosen boundaries over approval, your support through a comment, a share, or a gentle subscribe truly means a lot to me." The reconciliation dinner took place at a private room in a downtown steakhouse. The kind with dark wood walls and servers who moved like shadows. My parents chose it because it looked expensive, because it looked like control. Ryan was already there. Jaw tight. Leg bouncing under the table. My mother stood when I walked in. Arms open, like we were starring in a family movie. Dad offered a stiff nod. And there was the mediator, a middle-aged man with a calm face and a legal pad. He smiled politely. "Thank you all for coming. The goal tonight is understanding." Understanding. That was the word they loved when they wanted something. My mother started softly. "Elena, we miss you. We're worried. This whole situation has gotten out of hand." Ryan snorted, but my father shot him a look. Dad cleared his throat. "Your mother's right. We shouldn't be fighting. You're successful. We're proud. Let's move forward." Proud. It sounded rehearsed, like a line he'd practiced in the mirror. The mediator nodded. "Elena, what do you need from your family to feel safe in this relationship?" I didn't hesitate. Respect. Privacy. No attempts to contact my company. No pressure for money. My mother's smile twitched. Money isn't the point. Ryan's laugh came out sharp. Sure. Mom. Tell him the truth. The mediator blinked. Ryan. What is the truth? Ryan leaned forward. Eyes locked on me. The truth is, she's acting like she did this alone. Like she wasn't raised in this family. Like we didn't sacrifice for her. I kept my voice even. You didn't sacrifice. You benefited. His face flushed. You're unbelievable. 28 million and suddenly you're above everyone. My mother jumped in quickly. Tone sweet but edged. Elena. No one is saying, you owe us everything. We're just saying, family should share success. There it was. The pivot. Dad nodded. Ryan's made mistakes. He needs help getting stable. A loan. An investment. Something to give him a real start. The mediator's pen paused. So, you're asking Elena for financial support, Ryan snapped. Not support. Partnership. She can put me on the company. I can be the family face. I'm good with people. I stared at him. You tried to smear me to my board. It was accountability. He hissed. It was sabotage. I corrected. My mother's voice sharpened, losing the softness. You're holding grudges. You need to learn forgiveness. You have money now. Elena, stop acting like we're strangers. Dad leaned in. Finally, blunt. If you don't help Ryan, you're choosing greed over family. And people will know. A quiet threat. Reputation. Community. The story they'd always controlled. I didn't react. I reached into my purse and placed a slim folder on the table. The mediator glanced at it. What is this evidence? I said, emails Ryan sent to my board. The messages where my parents pressured me for money. The screenshots of relatives being used as flying messengers. And a cease and desist letter drafted and ready to file. My mother went pale. You brought lawyers to dinner, I brought boundaries. I said, you brought an agenda. Ryan pushed back his chair hard enough it screeched. You're a snake. You always were. I looked at him calm. Steady. No. Ryan. I'm just not small anymore. The mediator cleared his throat. Tense. This is becoming adversarial. It's already adversarial. I said quietly. I'm just done pretending it isn't. As I stood to leave, my father called after me. Voice bitter. You'll regret this when you need us. I paused at the door and said, the only truth that mattered. I already needed you. You weren't there. Then I walked out. Knowing the next move would end this completely. Ryan didn't wait long to retaliate. 2 days after the steakhouse dinner, an anonymous post appeared on a local business forum, implying my company's valuation was inflated, that I had family issues, and that investors should look deeper. It was written in the smug tone of someone who thought whispers could do what facts couldn't. Then, an email hit my inbox from a reporter at a Denver lifestyle blog. We've received claims about irregularities in Brooks' systems. It read, would you like to comment? I didn't panic. I'd expected this. What I didn't expect was how sloppy Ryan would be. My counsel traced the forum account to an IP address registered to my parents' home internet plan. The reporter's source email was tied to a burner account that had logged into the same Wi-Fi network. Ryan wasn't just angry, he was careless. So I made one call to my PR director and one call to my attorney. We didn't attack. We documented. We released a public statement that was painfully simple, independent audit results. Valuation documentation. Investor confirmations. And a single sentence that ended the conversation for anyone with a brain. Any claims of misconduct are false and currently under review by counsel due to evidence of targeted defamation. Then I did the move that truly changed everything. I filed for a restraining order and a civil defamation claim not against a vague anonymous person, but against Ryan specifically, with exhibits attached. Screenshots, IP tracing, the email headers, the messages he sent my board, the recordings from the steakhouse dinner where he demanded access to my company and threatened my reputation. When my attorney served him, he exploded publicly exactly like I knew he would. He posted on social media in a rage, calling me a liar, a fraud, a traitor, claiming I stole family money and destroyed him out of jealousy. He tagged investors. He tagged employees. He tagged people who had nothing to do with us. And because he couldn't control himself, he did something even worse. He uploaded a private audio clip from our dinner edited to make me sound cold, trying to turn public opinion against me. What he didn't realize was that the full, unedited recording had already been secured by my legal team, with the mediator's note that the conversation had been recorded with consent. His edited version didn't hurt me. It exposed him. Within hours, people started posting the discrepancies, the cuts, the missing context, the manipulation. Journalists love a narrative, but they love a liar getting caught even more. My investors didn't flinch. My board didn't waver. My employees rallied around me. And Ryan finally learned what it feels like when the story isn't yours to control. The court granted the temporary restraining order that week. The judge's words were calm but clear. This pattern indicates harassment and an intent to interfere with business operations. My mother called me crying. Dad sent a message that sounded like a threat, wrapped in sadness. Ryan sent a final text at midnight. "You think you won? You're still my sister." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Because winning wasn't the point. Freedom was. Thank you for staying with me through this moment where truth had to stand in public and endure the noise. If Elena's fight to protect her life and work resonates with you, your support through a comment, a share, or a gentle subscribe truly means more than you know. When the restraining order became permanent, something inside me finally unclenched. It wasn't joy. It wasn't revenge. It was relief, the kind that arrives when you realize you've stopped living inside someone else's approval. I went back to work the next morning like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. My company kept growing. We opened a second office. We hired 20 more people. I started funding scholarships for girls in STEM. Quietly. Without press releases. Because I didn't need applause. I needed purpose. And, for the first time in my life, my last name felt like mine, not something I had to earn. Ryan. On the other hand, couldn't outrun what he'd done. People in our circle stopped answering his calls. Friends who used to ride his charisma suddenly remembered his temper. When he tried to join a startup accelerator in town, the organizers politely declined. Not a fit. They said, I knew what it meant. My parents tried to salvage their image. My mother posted vague quotes about family betrayal and praying for healing. My father told relatives I had been manipulated by lawyers. It didn't work. The evidence existed. The court documents were public, and the more they complained, the smaller they looked. 3 months later, my assistant told me someone was downstairs asking to see me. It was my mother. She stood in the lobby of my building wearing the same coat she wore to church, clutching her purse like it was keeping her upright. She looked older than I remembered. Not fragile, just finally out of control. Elena, she said softly, voice trembling. We need to talk. I kept my tone calm. You're not allowed to contact me. I know. she whispered. I'm sorry. Your father's struggling. He's not okay. We didn't realize how serious this would become. I stared at her and felt something unexpected pity, but not responsibility. You realized, I said. When consequences arrived, her lips parted. Tears welled. You're still my daughter. I nodded once. And I was still your daughter when you chose him every time. She flinched like the truth physically hurt. I want to fix this, she pleaded. Please, just let us back in. Back in. Into my life. Into my resources. Into my safety. They wanted access, not repair. I shook my head gently. I hope you find peace. Truly. But you don't get access to my world after trying to destroy it, she whispered. So that's it. I said, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. She looked at me for a long moment, searching for the old Elena, the girl who would soften. Apologize. Fold. She didn't find her. I walked back toward the elevators and didn't look over my shoulder. Later that night, I stood by my window, city lights reflecting off the glass, and realized something that made my chest ache in a clean way. I didn't lose my family. I outgrew their limitations. And when Ryan learned I had $28M, he didn't burst with rage because he needed it. He burst with rage because it proved the story he lived on was false. That I was never less. I was just quiet. And now I was free.